Hello, and welcome to Flix and a Six. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Costanzo. With me, forever and always, the man, the myth, the Mancy, Alessandro Vaelsi. Say hello, Al.
Hello.
The flick for this week's episode is going to be Dunkirk, something that I've been waiting for quite some time. But first, Al, what are we drinking? Actually, what is it that you have poured so terribly into my glass?
Again, it's all about trying to get the sound of the pouring in there. And for those of you wondering about sound and hearing things,
there was a struggle at the beginning of this.
That's M as in Mancy, not N as in Nancy. In case you were wondering.
Fact. I thought you were gonna. I thought you were gonna talk about how horrible you opened that bottle.
Oh yeah.
You had some trouble.
Yeah, this one is like a 50-50 proposition. Sometimes it just bends it, like you can see it bends it way back, but it didn't actually peel
pop.
it off.
Yeah, it doesn't have like a wide enough pull because it pulls one of those little tabs open.
Yeah, it's got to get it right about 50%. It's just not doing that.
50% of the time.
Every time. That Mancy joke's an Archer deep cut for those of you fans out there. I was just about to do the greasy thing.
That's okay.
But that's 100% your beer.
Don't you put your nose grease in my beer.
It was going to be forehead grease out of respect. But no, I stopped doing it because I realized...
Out of respect.
Yeah, exactly. I realized it was your glass. I was like, oh,
there.
I'll let him do his own greasy forehead on that.
That works.
Sorry, I'm just trying to double it up.
This is good. This is good.
I did not expect this beer to be this foamy. This is actually not all me. This is a...
It's mostly you.
I'm going to go 50-50.
Oh...
Well, because I try and give it an energetic pour so you can
60-40.
hear it on the microphone, because I like that effect.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, can you see this? You see how chunky this beer is?
I do. Chunky, not a word I approve of.
It's because it's barrel-aged.
When considering my beers.
It's because it's a barrel-aged beer. So
you definitely got some stuff.
It's gonna likely unfiltered.
Floating around.
We'll find out whether it was
doesn't
filtered or not when I read the whole thing. Because if it was filtered, then that probably is a bit concerning.
All right, so this is going to be one of those rare occasions. You know what? Why don't you go ahead and tell us what this beer is? Because it's going to be a little while before we can drink it.
You want to do the honors? Just reach across?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not getting the beer in there.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Don't worry, guys.
What are we going to be drinking? Let's put it that way.
So, we will be drinking Stone Brewing's Stochasticity Project Hifi Lofi Mixtape.
This is the second of this.
This is the second Stochasticity beer that we've done.
What was the first episode we did with it?
Grainiac?
No, but what was the flick? Do you recall?
I don't. You do have the notes in front of you. You should be able to figure it out.
I could probably figure that out
pretty quickly. I'm trying to remember the title because I know I put Grainiac in the title.
Yeah.
And I can't remember which one it is now.
Yeah.
So this is a blend of fresh and barrel-aged ales. So to refresh...
You're a blend. Sorry.
Okay. To refresh, Stochasticity. There is no happenstance or coincidence. Dumb luck is a fallacy, and randomness a commonly accepted mistruth. Much of what seemingly falls into place, yet seems so natural, is a result of stochasticity, a concept embraced and exalted by this special and unpredictable series of beers where exotic notions, ingredients, and ideas coalesce at an interesting and often unexpected endpoint. So, for the specifics of this one. Fresh and vintage tracks combine for the perfect liquid playlist. Even before the science of
playlist.
Beer. Yeah.
This is our second beer.
Yeah, our second
related to music.
Playlist-related beer.
Yeah.
Even before the science of beer was fully understood, those seeking to present the finest iteration of an ale had their ways of ensuring flavors and textures that were a cut above. In Britain, pub owners kept stock ales on hand, beers that had been left to mature in vats or oak barrels. During this aging period, the beers would mellow and occasionally develop a twinge of tartness. These publicans, never heard that word before, were unaware of the oxidative or microbiological reasons for such changes, but found that blending some of their stock ales with fresh beers, which tended to be overly bitter and smoky, made ideal quaffs for their patrons. For this beer, we've taken a page from this tale of British pub life and blended a stock ale, aged more than 3 months in oak foundries. Nope, that's not how that... I don't know what this word is. It looked French. Foudres. Foudres?
Foudres?
Yeah. They are large wooden fermentation vessels, more commonly used by vintners, with a fresh version of that beer to create a perfect harmony.
I'm gonna pause you right there. I'm gonna guess it's Foudres.
Yeah, probably.
Because the first result was Foudres for thought. Craftbeer.com.
I wish you waited like 6 seconds though, because I was like 8 words from being done reading.
Oh, that's so much fun to interrupt you.
With a fresh version of that beer to
Let's stop you right there.
a perfect harmony spanning end to end on the taste spectrum. So this uses... they give you a little bit of... I think I mentioned this last time as well. They give you a little bit more of the info about what went into making this.
Okay.
The malt varieties used are Pale Two-Row Malt, English Pale, Mild Ale, Bryce, and Amber. The aging vessel was Oak Foudres, which we've now decided that's the commonly accepted pronunciation. The hop varieties are Apollo, UK Target, and Willamette. Willamette's a pretty well-known...
Did you read anything about the filtering?
I didn't see anything on there about filtering. I'm assuming, though, since we're talking about a stock ale aged in wooden casks, and that was the comment I gave you to begin with, that's more than likely debris from the cask aging. Debris.
We were about to take a sip. I had Al pour the rest of the beer into my glass. And
and it doesn't say it on here, but I looked it up earlier.
We've been reset once again.
I looked it up earlier just to see the whole thing. It is a strong ale, is what is the style of beer that they're calling this.
Is that just high
8.8%?
Is that
yeah,
what makes it a strong ale?
That's a large component of it, but the typically very malt forward beers.
Takes a big guy to lift the keg.
Yeah, exactly. It's a malty beer. It's not like an IPA really. There may be some residual bitterness to it, but it's a big, aggressive malty.
Every time you say the word malt, I want Whoppers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Also, it's got pretty cool artwork on it. I thought.
Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the sucker. I haven't commented on artwork in a while.
Trademark Stone Demon, but it's in that like filtered like purple and black like coloration. I thought that was kind of cool.
Well, what's cool about it is it's actually sound waves.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
Which makes sense for the mixtape thing.
Yeah.
Hi-Fi, Lofi.
That's actually really cool. I dig it.
Me too.
Barrel aged ales.
Now that we have beer in our glasses, and all the beer is out of the bottle,
I should be able to take a sip of it.
Let's cheers and take a sip.
Take a big mouthful of foam here. Cheers.
That is aggressive.
Yep. I would definitely call that strong.
That is a strong ale.
It's very alcoholic.
Yeah, it's very.
They weren't lying.
No, they were not.
First sip. One more.
It's a complex beer. I can understand why you may need a couple sips to kind of come up with a verdict on this one.
It's okay.
I like it, but it is it's the type of beer that you're gonna have one.
Yeah.
It would
and I'm not. I'm actually not saying even in a sitting. I wouldn't get this again. I don't. It's not that I don't hate it. I'll easily drink this.
Yeah.
This one glass of it, but I'm not gonna go out looking for it.
That's fair.
But
you don't regret the experience?
I don't regret the experience. I won't welcome it again. Okay. I just,
sounds like you don't like it.
I don't hate it. Can I put it that way?
I mean, I kind of like it. It's something that like I would need like some space for. I think especially a lot of strong ales.
Space.
It's something that you would drink more in the winter because it's like a hearty, warming.
I can get behind that.
Like this would be nice, like December in front of a fire. Maybe have one on a Friday night, watching a movie or something.
I like the flavors that are in there. I like some of them. I don't like that the first thing it's like, like alcohol, like just like that alcohol flavor and sensation in my nose. I can
see that.
I don't care for that.
That does kind of play into the warming thing, though. It's got even a little bit of some fruity notes to it, maybe. It's mostly it's very malt forward, but there's a little bit of fruity in there. Yeah. Which you'll get some residual sweetness to it too with like a highly alcoholic beer a lot of times. If it's not something that's super bitter that has a black patent type of malt or a lot of hopping to put a cap on how sweet it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And since this is malt forward, it lets it kind of run away with the sweetness.
I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5.
It's an odd choice.
It's a scale that I'm deciding on right this second.
It's the first time you've done a scale
in the moment
like that. Up until now, it's been good.
I
would drink again.
I figure, yeah, and this doesn't fall into
Or
those.
this is liquid banana. Or would not drink again.
Why am I drinking runts?
This beer is way saltier than I expected.
I will tell you this. It's no Lager Boss. I did have to just look around the computer to remember the name of it, but it's fine. I already missed the beer from our last episode.
Right?
Yeah, it's still good. Anyway, it's okay. I can see why people would like it. It's just not. It's not particularly for me.
It's one of those, like, you can't account for the taste thing. Like, if it's just not for you, but you can appreciate what it is and why people would like it.
Mm-hmm. Do you see yourself making a strong ale anytime in your... Was it strong ale?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Probably. It is kind of a catch-all term sometimes, but I can see myself making something in this vein at some point.
Yeah.
Sad to announce that the most recent batch of beer that I made has been giving me a little bit of trouble.
Oh, no.
I had like a stuck fermentation, whereas like it just literally fermented half of what it was supposed to.
Huh.
So
how do you tell that? What is...
With the hydrometer.
Okay.
You get like...
that's not that gravity thing, is it?
Yes.
That is the gravity thing.
Yes.
Okay.
So you get a reading of it when you first...
The little buoy that Al drops in his beer
Yes,
that I just
exactly.
watch go up and down. Ooh.
Yeah, it just bobs around and gives you a reading.
It's science.
So when I designed that recipe, I got kind of an expected starting gravity for it, and I brewed it. Was very close to that number, so it was good. Happy. Measured it up, pitched my yeast, bucketed it up, let it sit the 2 weeks that it typically is going to sit, and then I opened it and was getting ready to bottle it, because I've never really had an issue with it before. It's usually pretty close. I usually get all my stuff mixed up, and then I take the measurement just to make sure. But got to that point, it was like, it's about halfway done. So I moved it to a warmer temperature.
Okay,
because
I was going to ask what
it's a type of beer that it should have been able to ferment at the temperature it was at. But I had actually meant to. It was just I had a lot going on in the 2 weeks that I was on. I was going to do the first 4 days at the lower temperature and then move it up just so it can acclimate itself. And then it's a saison, so it benefits from warmer temperatures. Just it makes the flavor more complex. It doesn't actually change how it ferments.
Okay.
It just changes some of the byproducts that the yeast make because when it's warmer, they're a little bit more active and more prolific. So I moved it to the warmer temperature and gave it about another 4 days and then checked it again and no change. So I went and got new yeast, made myself a yeast starter because it needs that often once there's already alcohol been introduced into the system because the alcohol will kill the yeast, even though that sounds kind of counterintuitive. So it's plugging along and hopefully it'll hit its mark and it won't suffer any ill effects.
Fucking Icarus over here. You flew too close to the sun with that last beer.
Right?
Yeah.
Is this my punishment for the perfection of the quadrilogy?
We gotta take you down a peg, I guess. Anyway, I do look forward to seeing how that comes out.
Me too. I really like
Best of luck.
I was really excited about that recipe. So
You seem very sad.
I am.
I feel like you need a hug. I almost want to get up and hug you. I'm not going to be clear.
But the fact that you almost want to is an honor.
Okay, cheers. Sweet. Shall we get into our flick?
Sure.
So, the flick for this episode, as I mentioned earlier, is Dunkirk. And as you all know, if you've been listening, I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan.
Me too.
I would put him as my number one director. I know he's up in your list.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I don't know if I
my...
have a number one, but he's someone that when you say a film by Christopher Nolan, I'm like, tell me more. I'm gonna
bet your ass off seeing that movie. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, guys like Nolan or Scorsese or Edgar Wright. Not that I would put him on necessarily the same level, but it's like those are the guys like when you tell me a movie is from that person.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit down and listen.
Absolutely. This was one of those movies where I think I've told the story here before. The first time I saw the preview for it, it's like the first, it's like one, like the panel opens on the screen. I'm like, this is a Christopher Nolan movie. And then within 10 seconds, his name pops up. I'm like, nailed it. And Kim was like, how did you do that? And I was like, I love him. Right? He's so good.
I just had that happen recently. I don't remember what it was. And you did it with... when we were watching randomly after recording last night, we were watching the original Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, and you said, did Danny Elfman do the score? I looked up, I was like, he did.
It's like, nailed it.
I had it happen recently, too. Something, it was like an older movie or something like that, and I was like, I feel like this was made by someone.
Like someone, yeah.
And I looked it up, I was like, oh shit, it did do that. I was like, I had no idea.
One of the things that I'm usually pretty good at doing is guessing the year of a movie. Not from knowing...
Plus or minus a year.
Yeah, not from knowing when it came out, but just from the aesthetic of the shooting. Which is why I got thrown off today when I was sitting in the living room watching. I was like, this movie is... Like, this is like a... Like, 86, like, around, like, Beverly Hills Cop came out. Nope, just shot that way, which... Kudos.
Yeah, it was very piece.
The fact that you pulled that off, like, yeah, great.
That was great. I walked into the room, and Anthony was watching the TV, and he goes, hey, when do you think this movie came out? I said... Like 2 years ago. That's Eddie the Eagle. And he goes, fuck, you already saw the movie. You weren't supposed to know.
No, it was, yeah. Anyway, so Christopher Nolan, I was hyped for this movie as soon as I knew that it was coming out.
I wasn't.
You weren't?
No, because I thought he was making a war documentary. Because it was making a film about Dunkirk. And I was like,
right.
I like Christopher Nolan, but I'm not really interested in a documentary. Then I saw that first trailer you're talking about. I was like, oh, it's not a documentary. It's just like, we're doing a real story.
I want this movie.
But it's an actual war movie. Now I'm on board.
and an excellent one at that. I'm not gonna bury the lead there at all. Loved it.
Fantastic.
No surprise.
All the hype you've heard, it's real. Like, if you're an actual fan of movies and if you're a fan of war movies, this is a movie you need to see. It's really good. And
there is a Christopher Nolan and Hans Zimmer are a package deal.
At this point, yes.
Right? So, something that I came across, I was talking to a coworker of mine, Toby. What's up, Toby? I was talking to Toby.
Does Toby listen?
And he may.
Oh, he
may now. And he lives in California, and we were talking. He's big into movies. We both saw this opening weekend. Sorry,
yeah, that's
Al.
right. The Taste of Betrayal.
Taste of Betrayal.
You fucking Wait, no. Let's fill in the audience on how I experienced that. So we were planning getting together for the first time in like 2 months now to actually see a movie together and record right after. And we're like, oh, Dunkirk, we're totally going to do that one together.
Yep.
And the movie came out, well, it doesn't matter when you guys are listening to it. The movie came out a week ago from where now we're talking about having seen it and recorded. So, like, that day when we were going to plan it, earlier, I just happened to see on Facebook, Anthony's lovely fiancée, Kim, hey Kim, posted on Facebook that she was going to see Dunkirk with Anthony. And I was like...
Fact.
Okay, that hurts.
Suddenly Al was stranded on the beach.
I was like, this hurts. And I felt like I was stranded on the beach with mortar shells falling around me. So...
Way to cheap it in. Jesus. It's a lot more serious for those guys, all right?
Right? I may have gone too far. I may have committed some light treason.
Some light to medium treason.
So I was texting Anthony later, and he's like, I was dancing around the fact that I had seen that he was going to see Dunkirk, because he didn't tell me he was going to see it with Kim at the time. And he said something, and I'm too lazy to go scroll back and find it because it doesn't matter. But he was saying something about
being busy.
I said, oh yeah? Busy betraying me? And he's like, I guess. And I was like, yeah, that's right, I saw you going to see Dunkirk today, you fucking asshole.
And I believe I wasn't sorry. Was how
Probably not, yeah. And I wasn't that angry. It was just funny because
it was great.
Like, he wouldn't have posted it.
Nah.
But the fact that she did and I saw it and waited for
you wouldn't have known that I had seen it already until like earlier today when I was like, I can't wait to see how this is in IMAX. Because it was already great before that.
Because that was what was important. I guess he saw it on a conventional theater. This movie was shot to watch on IMAX. We got to go and see it on full IMAX
and
today.
You should be thanking me because I've got two perspectives on this movie now that I've seen it in both formats.
It needs to be seen.
No, the fact is there.
Prove that you have two perspectives before I think. No. What I'm saying is I want to hear how that comes into play in the episode before I thank you for it.
Okay, right now or later? Let's do it later.
Over the course of the episode.
Okay, let's go back. So
it doesn't have to be all
Hans Zimmer. So talking to Toby, and I've talked to you about movies. I talked to a few friends about movies. When I bring up Hans Zimmer, it's always positive light. Everybody, the people that I talk to about him, love him. And he was telling me,
as do you,
that as do I, yeah. he was telling me that a lot of people that he speaks with they don't like him. They don't think that he's all that he's hyped up to be.
Okay.
And
they're wrong.
I had right. I was like, well, if people are trying to discredit you, you're probably pretty great at what you're doing.
I want to continue going into this because I actually have some stuff to add to this conversation that'll probably bolster what you're talking about. But just to be clear, like we've talked in previous episodes, for those of you who listen, I think that John Williams is the number one. But I have no problem if you said Hans Zimmer was second.
I have Hans Zimmer at the top.
I know. That was kind of our sticking point. They're comparable.
Yeah.
I would just give John Williams a slight nod above him, but it's a close second, probably.
And, no, what I mean? I by no means, I'm not going to be able to list off a ton of composers. Hans Zimmer, John Williams, Danny Elfman, I can pick their music out immediately, as you saw last night. Others, not so much. I'd like to be able to do that, but they kind of coincide with the movies that I like, so I happen to recognize, there's something similar through these movies. Oh, it's the sound and the music, and it's like, oh, okay, and then I start to pick up on.
I'm going to be honest, that time that I accidentally baited you into proving my point, though, about John Williams, made the ego feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Continue on with your conversation with Toby about Hans Zimmer.
That's really it. I was just kind of curious, have you come across people disliking
So why did these... Was it Toby or was it other people you were saying?
He likes him.
Okay. What is the reason that people don't
We didn't really get too into it. It was just more like... just that he was overrated and...
There was nothing why...
I didn't get into specifics.
Because...
I'd like to, but
I know I sent you an article in the past week or two from The Ringer, and we've talked about it a little bit in recent episodes. It was the HBO movie with Andy Samberg. We talked about The Ringer a bit, where I went on a tangent bashing Bill Simmons, talking about his former greater site, Grantland, and his now current site, The Ringer. And they do themed weeks on the site sometimes. I sent you some stuff. It was the bad action movies or the good bad movies. I sent you something a few weeks back. And last week, in the run-up to the release of Dunkirk, they did a Christopher Nolan week. Which movie was his best? What makes him great? Kind of a look at how his styles of movies have changed over the course of it, this and that. And there was an article about Hans Zimmer in Nolan Week because of his close association with Nolan. And I think the reason some people think he's overrated, don't like him, is because they hear a lot of other scores that sound like his scores. But the thing is, and the article tracks it, Hans Zimmer's been doing this for a long time. Everyone in the last 10 years, or not everyone, but a lot of newer-ish composers are emulating sounds that he made the first time in scores that he did. So everyone sounds like Hans Zimmer, not Hans Zimmer sounds like everyone else. Okay. That's an important distinction. That the reason that
Pioneer.
I think that some people think he's overrated is because, I heard that in another movie made by someone else. But it's not because he's parroting them, it's the other way around.
If I remember correctly...
That's a really important distinction.
I agree with that. But if I remember correctly, part of it was also that a lot of... Throughout the movie, a lot of the time, it's not like... He's got the score that goes through the entire film. But
are you talking about this movie or movies?
His movies that he's done in general. But there's a lot of times where it's really just which I think is incredible, is the tension that they build with the sound. Yes. And it's not a song at a lot of times. It's not... It's like a break in the score in a way, but it's just like a rising tone or
dark ominous tone.
Yeah, it's dark. The masturbating dog killer is on the loose. What was that? Forgetting Sarah Mark.
Yes.
But anyway, it's like in this movie, for example, like there's a couple of things that we can touch on right now. There is a ticking watch that is, I would say, 3/4 of the movie you hear it. Whether or not you're paying attention to it, it's like there.
I don't know if it's 3/4, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And it's from start to finish.
Yeah, because it is when they're running in the beginning, and this is something I picked up on having seen it twice. The first time I noticed it, when I watched it,
it's like an expansion on the Dark Knight Rising sound.
Yeah,
because there was that kind of undercurrent to it, and then the ticking on top of that sound.
Right,
the two of them were kind of married together, crescendoing as things were amping up in tension. It was a really cool effect. It makes you feel like you're physically doing stuff while you're watching the movie. It makes you feel like you're physically exhausted from
Yeah.
the anxiety that it induces.
Absolutely.
Which, for those of you who have anxiety, I guess I apologize because it's going to be a trip for you.
For sure.
But-
or if you have high blood pressure, maybe get that in check before going to see this movie.
It's integral to the experience of
It really
this
is.
movie.
And you're very much like it. Movies will make you a good art form will make you feel something, and I think that he always hits the mark there. Like I definitely feel something every time that I'm watching his movies. And this particular movie, I'm lost a lot of the time, not in a bad way. I'm trying to. I mentioned this to you earlier before. Like I'm trying to get my bearings. I'm tense. My shoulders are tight. And that's a lot of that happens with the music.
Yeah.
And the way that he sequences the shots. But the clock ticking specifically, I noticed it the first time I watched it when Tom Hardy looks at his watch, and then it was clear to me that it was in the background. I didn't notice it right before that scene the first time I watched it, and then it's throughout.
I noticed it from the very first second,
and it's throughout. And then now going back, knowing that that's there, I was like, oh, this is ever present in this movie, and it's.
See, I guess
it is exhausting. Is the word you used earlier? And
Yeah.
I completely agree with that.
I guess probably it's because I read some stuff. I didn't read anything that was a spoiler review for the movie, but I read stuff about the movie and what is unique about it before I had seen it. So I was aware of the idea of this ticking clock already. So I was noticing it from the very first second. Although I thought it was going to be a sound that conjures up an image of a clock, not actual ticking of a clock. You know what I mean? I thought it was going to be something adjacent to the sound of the ticking of a clock. Not, this literally sounds like the 60 Minutes.
TikTok adjacent.
Yeah. TikTok adjacent. If anyone's a fan of Peter Rosenberg.
So there's another.
We could, if we want, we should just stick with the score for a bit, because this
is
a big note for
there's
me,
another
and I
part
knew it
of
was going
it.
to be for you. So
Another thing that
there's a couple things I want to talk about more.
With his score, and I can see like we're saying, if it's they're focusing on that, maybe these individual tones that are used throughout. I don't know. I don't know enough about I appreciate music. I don't know enough about music theory to explain these things to you. I just know that
You got a better chance than me, considering you've played music for quite some time.
But I just know when I like something.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a scene where two guys are carrying a stretcher, and it's just a fiddle. It's going it's almost to their footsteps, and it's increasingly intense. And as they get tired, it slows down, and then it picks up again, and it slows down, and it's it's really good. It's really awesome.
Kind of experiential stuff where it's there's that where it's tied to the movements happening on screen, and there's another one. This is a big point that I wanted to bring up. I can't remember the scene specifically, and maybe that's for the best since we're still in non-spoilers right now. But it happened a couple times, but there was one scene where it really crystallized for me. I want to say it was about maybe a little way before halfway through the movie, where there was a really big scene. It might have been someone in the water who was trying not to drown or something like that. But the rhythm of the score and everything was literally like a heartbeat that was accelerating. And it got to the point where, especially in that theater, the way you experience it, it actually overwrites your own heartbeat, because you can feel the thud in the chairs so much that it feels like it's your heartbeat taking over you, and it's continuing to increase and increase the way it would for you when you were actually in a real panic. It's almost like the way when you go to one of those quote unquote 4D movie ride things in where the sounds and the things that are going on, you're being physically impacted by the score in a way that I've never had happen in a movie before. That heartbeat thing, it becomes more true than your own heartbeat in your own mind, because you feel it reverberating through you, and your body recognizes it as being heartbeat like.
Yeah, it's intense, and it's it cannot go under noted or mentioned. The music is extremely important in the movie.
Yeah, and that's something that I think is really cool, where I think it's been true in previous iterations of their movies, Nolan and Zimmer, but this one truly, it feels like the two of them designed both the score and the movie together.
Right.
Where it doesn't sound like they made a score and fit it to the movie, or they made a movie and then fit a score to it. It feels like the two were made hand in hand, and they you cannot have one without the other. Mm-hmm. Whereas like other movies, you could put a different score over top of it, right? Yeah. Or you could take a score that exists and probably fit it to a different movie. These two things could not. You cannot separate them into two separate identifiable objects.
Right. What is cool about that? That you say that if you listen to an album or if you listen to a score, I should say, for a movie like this, you can relive the entire movie with just the sound because you've experienced it already. So like when certain things happen in the music, you realize how closely tied they are in your memory of them happening on screen. Yeah. So like because I've listened to it at work, which was a huge mistake.
Yeah, you told me you started listening to it before the movie came out, right?
I did that, and then I was like, I felt tense, and I stopped. But then I listened to it again after I had seen it while I was working, and I was like, I literally couldn't focus because I was stressed out. Yes. And I was like, no, this makes sense. I gotta stop. I'm gonna turn this off now, and I'm gonna put on the Man of Steel soundtrack because I really love the music in that movie.
Even the oh no, you're talking about Man of Steel. I was thinking of Batman vs Superman. I was gonna say even the
no. There's your problem right there. Oh my god, friggin'
the Wonder Woman theme, if you will.
What are you doing? Well, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit.
I thought it was okay.
No. Disagree. Hard pass. But the music. Pay attention to it.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it already and you're going to see it, just really... I was going to say keep an eye on it, but that's not how you do that. Keep an ear on it. Yeah. Real close.
Or even some of it, like I said, you physically feel it. Like,
oh, yeah.
Keep your sense of
on it. Well, let's get into this then. When I saw the movie the first time, I saw it in just a standard theater. And I loved every minute of it. Going into seeing it in IMAX, it wasn't for me. What I wasn't excited about was the gigantic screen that I was going to be seeing it on and the proper format for it. Whatever. That I like that. I do appreciate seeing it that way. But I really, really love the sound in an IMAX theater. And I knew that the first time you hear gunshots in that movie, I'm not getting into the spoilers yet. The first time you hear gunshots in that movie, I knew it was coming. But it scared the crap out of me. Yeah, the sound in the IMAX theater.
Even more than explosions, the gunfire was obnoxious.
Yeah.
I mean, like, on the border of being obnoxious.
It was. And, like, their precision, like, surround sound in that theater is absurd.
The directionality is, like, you pick up on it.
It's like, I'm ducking down, like, good God, what is happening?
Oh, wow, that sounded exactly like a bullet whizzing over my head and smacking into a metal pole.
Like, if somebody, like, behind me got shot, I would be like, nah, checks out.
Perfect crime. No one would have known.
But so there's the sound that it really, because it adds an extra layer of it when that sound is that intense and that pinpoint accuracy with the film on screen. And between the gunshots, the bombs, and the planes.
The plane sounds were ridiculous.
It was insane.
Yes. And that's another thing that they melded that, I think, with the score at times, too. Mm-hmm. And the idea of them crescendoing, whether it be the plane dive bombing or the score or both, the way that they use the kind of the crescendos of the sounds in building sounds in this was incredible. Actually, to the point of like, it got past. It was like when you thought you reached fever pitch, it found a way to maintain at that. And it's like I've never seen that sort of endurance on that on like a crescendo like that before. It's like almost nerve wracking.
Yeah.
But it was incredible. Mm-hmm. How much did you enjoy, though, the excellent surround sound in the IMAX as opposed to being face fucked by the Dolby Atmos?
Oh my god!
Did you imagine seeing this movie in that?
No, I couldn't. Honestly, I probably would have had my fingers in my ears if it was in the Dolby Atmos. It was like like I said, there's like good sound production and surround sound tactics, and then there's just sheer volume being pumped through the speakers that is physically hurting me. And that's what I feel like unless it was like calibrated properly, that's what would happen if I was in that friggin' Dolby Atmos theater.
Yeah.
I guarantee you your heartbeat would have been overwritten in that theater.
I would have had an audio induced heart attack.
Yeah, the movie would end and your heart would just stop and you'd just keel over and die. That's what would happen if you saw this movie in Atmos. Or that Atmos theater.
You've been dragging me out of that theater.
Yeah. No, We both would have been dead.
Oh, okay.
You failed to realize. Everybody's dead at the end of the movie.
Okay. Now that's the perfect crime.
What happened to these people? Who were we putting on trial? Dolby? Oh my god. Is there anything particular that you want to get into with before we just lift the cover of the spoiler warning? Because I don't like to hold back when we go through the rest of the stuff in the movie, so I'd like to get it out of the way.
Dialogue.
Okay. Or lack thereof.
My note is lack of dialogue.
Beautiful lack of dialogue.
Yes. It's funny because I guess the closest parallel when you consider like the timing of it all is The Revenant. The lack of dialogue as a stylistic choice.
Did you see the little bit of pain that went through me when you brought up The Revenant alongside this movie?
You dislike that movie more than to be expected.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, it's not a perfect movie. I don't love it. I thought it was a good movie. I enjoyed it.
Much like this beer, I will not be partaking in The Revenant again.
No, I've already rewatched at least part of it. It was on like HBO, and I caught it for a little bit.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, but you can understand the artistic choices of these movies. Mm-hmm. Both of them beautifully shot, beautifully scored, and making a conscious choice to have a lack of dialogue and
when those soldiers eat that bear heart,
and have weight to each word. There's no wasted space with the dialogue. This isn't. I mean, Sorkin's brilliant, but this isn't a Sorkin script where everyone's talking to talk. No matter how clever and witty the lines are, this is one where the words don't matter in those movies because there are so many of them, and in this one, every word matters because there are so few.
Yeah.
So you go long periods where, sure, you might hear some screaming because it's a battlefield, but there's no dialogue for significant stretches of the movie, really. There might be a one word like,
English.
Look over there. Or English. Or help.
All right.
But, like, and there's periods where there is dialogue, but that there are so significant stretches where there's nothing or very little dialogue, I thought was interesting. And it added an interesting flair to this film.
You're right. They just every word packs a punch because there's so few of them.
Yeah,
it's really well done.
But I think it might be an odd experience for people who, like, I mean, you expect in a war movie there's going to be periods where you have everyone shooting each other up, right? Like, you're not going to be doing a lot of chit chat, right?
Right.
Grenade or over there or help, But in between, we're accustomed to seeing in war movies usually a lot of talking. And that wasn't the case most often in this movie. There's a couple scenes where there's kind of a meaty section of dialogue, but that's the exception, not the rule.
Right.
Which I thought was cool. I thought that was something we could discuss pre-spoilers.
Yeah, I actually thought of one, when thinking of that, I thought of one more thing. So it's on my list here, too. This movie's PG-13.
Was it?
Yes.
Not surprised.
It's not surprising, because there is no gore in this movie.
Yeah, very little actual blood.
There's
really just the one scene that I'm not going to talk about.
There's maybe blood in, like, us. There's two scenes where there's blood. One scene, it's dried up. That's basically it, and I think it's important because
the guy on the stretcher.
Yeah. So here's why it's important. This is how I take it. There's no reason to look away in this movie because of that. Like,
except for oh my god, that fighter pilot almost just crashed into my head.
Right.
Because of the sound.
I'm saying, like, in a movie like Saving Private Ryan,
yes.
When you're on the beach and you're just like, I can see people will turn away from that. It's grueling. It's horrible to look at. It's very real in a lot of ways, but they're trying to get that point across through, like, the horror of that. This took a different approach, I feel like, with the other horrors, and took that out of the picture so that you would focus on it more.
Yeah, both were very true experiences, true to the experiences of war.
Right.
I think.
And
Not that I've ever encountered it, but what you expect war to be, or if you don't know what you expect war to be, seeing and hearing in a movie like Saving Private Ryan or Hacksaw Ridge as opposed to this movie, neither of them is untrue in the way they represent.
Right.
And you didn't need to get the gore across because there was a whole lot of other things. It's been done a million times before. Everyone knows. But I also blow someone's leg off, they bleed.
I do think it's calculated. Like, they have it this way. There's no reason to look away. Like, we're making sure that you don't have like a physical like nausea from looking at the scene.
Oh,
we want you to stay looking at it because every scene, especially in a Christopher Nolan movie, every scene is extremely important.
Yes, although I will disagree with that slightly. The things that you're going to want to look away from are not blood in this movie. It's the repeated instances of people drowning or nearly drowning.
Yeah, that's tough.
That was nauseating, and that's another one where the sound is added to it. And drowning is one of the most horrific versions of death that I can imagine.
Right.
And this isn't spoiling, because if you know anything about this movie, you know that a lot of it takes place in or over the water.
Right.
And if you've heard anything about the movie, it's a common theme. And this isn't just a movie with artistic choices. These events really happened.
Right.
These people really were drowning or nearly drowning.
It's all that. Even that, though, even the drowning, something like that, is handled very beautifully. You never see somebody die in the water,
but you see them come really close, or you see them get to the brink of death,
and then they go somewhere else.
They die.
Yeah, there's like this person's gonna die. Like, you have to accept that, and like,
and they move on to someone else.
Right, and it's in a lot of ways. It's like it leaves some to like. You have to you have that weight on you from knowing they're that person's dying as you go on to the next scene and them not showing it, and it just adds so much to it.
But you're gonna get physical discomfort from watching people drowning or panicking because they think they're drowning. Mm-hmm. And there are long form shots of one or more people drowning,
and it's terrifying.
Yeah,
this movie is terrifying,
which it's supposed to be, which I'm sure it was for these people.
Yeah, I cannot begin to imagine.
Yeah.
It's out of control. Any other notes before we lift the veil?
I don't think so. I think that's probably good.
From this moment on, spoilers are on the table. If you haven't seen this movie, absolutely see this movie before continuing with us.
And for those of you who are worried because it's a war movie and it's a Christopher Nolan movie, this movie is less than 2 hours long.
Yeah.
It's an important note because expect the Nolan movie or a war movie to be 3 hours or so. This was like 108 minutes is the runtime or something like that. It's less than 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like more because you're going to be, like I said, physically exhausted when you're done.
By the end of it.
But you can sit down and watch this one pretty quick.
Let's take a lighter note for a second because I'm getting depressed. There's a scene in the movie where Tom Hardy and his... I forget... I can't remember Collins? Yes.
Collins and Ferrier.
So Ferrier...
I caught Collins, but I didn't know what Tom Hardy's name was until I looked it up at the end.
So he was Ferrier?
Yes.
Oh, who was the guy that died?
Was his wingman. Oh,
I thought that was Ferrier.
No,
leader.
Collins. The leader didn't get a name.
Oh, okay, he just went down.
It was something leader, and then Tom Hardy was something one, and then the other guy was something. But you heard him. He said it a couple times. I thought he said fighter. I thought he was saying like you're a fighter when he's. Since we're in spoilers, he's on the boat and he's watching Tom Hardy fly around in a dogfight trying to save the ship by shooting down the bomber, and he was saying Farrier.
Oh, okay.
And the guy who that was his wingman who had got shot down earlier was Collins.
Gotcha. So one of my like I was saying on the lighter note. So like this, Collins gets shot down, and he brings his plane onto the water, and he slams it down, and he gets stuck, and he's locked in there, and it's actually this is another extremely tense, terrifying scene because the way they did this was beautiful. You see it the first time from the perspective of Tom Hardy, where he sees his
beautiful. It was manipulative.
It was beautifully done. His hand is out of the cockpit,
and Tom Hardy
waves. It's a wave because he's flailing, which you find out later. It's a wave. Tom Hardy sees him, gives him a wave, and continues on. Later, you find out from the other perspective that he's in there and he's trying to get out of the cockpit and he only has his arm out, and I'm losing my mind. I was like, oh no, Tom Hardy doesn't know! That's what went through my mind. But then...
Which, that was really cool, considering that was something I knew ahead of time, and they give it to you within the first 5 minutes of the movie or so. That it's 3 timelines, all across, like, the people on the beach is over the course of a week. The people on the boats are over the course of a day.
Yeah.
And Tom Hardy and Collins
is
over an hour.
Right.
Up in the sky in their fighter planes.
So cool.
So I knew that was the thing, and I knew that eventually it all would come together. But actually seeing the scenes from different perspectives, which is something I thought we were going to get, but there was a couple instances where it took a long time in the movie. There was a huge split, and that was one of the instances where Collins gets shot down about maybe a third of the way through the movie. And we don't actually see it from his perspective until the final third of the movie.
Which is, it's crazy, and I mentioned this to you. This is it makes it disorienting.
Yes.
And obviously, it feels very much on purpose. I think Christopher Nolan is fantastic when it comes to sequencing things like this. Memento is nobody else does Memento. I'm sorry, like not the way that he does it, and like with the perfection that he carries it out, and that he's showing a lot of those skills in this.
About
movie.
the only person I could see do it, or people I could see doing it, as the Wachowskis. Yeah. And that's because as we were walking out, I made a reference to the way this movie was laid out with the 3 divergent but converging storylines.
Yeah.
Reminded me, the way it was cut up, reminded me in some ways of the way they layer the different storylines in Cloud Atlas.
Right.
So they're about the only other person I could see making that sort of thing in that way.
Yeah, I get that. It's just like it's another thing that adds to the experience of this movie. You're very much like, it's almost as if you're pulling your head out of the water and trying to figure out, wait, where am I supposed to be going? And it's really well done. But so what I was getting to was like probably the only part of the movie that made me laugh. There's like one comical line.
Kenneth Branagh.
Who?
The admiral or whatever he was.
Oh, he was good too. Yeah,
because it's funny. I want to keep.
That's not the scene, though.
I want to keep getting to your point, but about a third of the way through the movie, I was like, "Man, you think with all these talented British actors, although about half the cast is really unknown and half of them quite well known." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Oh, I guess we don't get treated to any of the kind of the stoic British wit that like the soldiers are quote unquote known for." And we finally get some funny lines. I was like, "We're not going to get a single smile." Like even the most brutal of war movies typically have a couple of lines you're going to laugh at. Saving Private Ryan. There's some funny shit in Saving Private Ryan.
That's exactly where I'm going with this scene.
And finally, Kenneth Branagh started ripping off a couple of little funny one-liners, some snarky lines that I was like, okay, we need a smile. Yeah. Just for 1 second.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you're in the Army and I'm in the Navy.
That was funny.
Beautiful.
James D'Arcy is the British colonel of the land forces, and I think he was an admiral, but I'm not 100% sure. Kenneth Branagh is a naval officer. And they're standing, and he says, it'll be 6 hours. And he goes, I thought the tide is every 3 hours. And Kenneth Branagh says, well, it's a good thing you're in the Army and I'm in the Navy.
Yeah. And just like, I feel like at that point, you're just like, I really need to laugh right now. Oh, thank God. But the one that gets me is this scene. So Collins is trapped. The cockpit's filling up with water.
That was good, too, but it was just much later in the movie.
The boat pulls up, and they crack it open. Without skipping a beat, he's avoided death. In the most absurd, he was saved by these people.
He was fully submerged and
he gets out of the cockpit
drown.
And says, "Afternoon."
Yes,
I was like, "God damn, that was funny."
After the seal was broken. Kenneth Branagh ripped off a couple of funny lines earlier in the movie.
That got me though.
Worried is that we weren't going to get any of that, which you just need something just to stop your heart beating for just 1 second. Like, okay, I can breathe. Like that was funny. Oh wait, look, someone else is getting shot down. This is horrifying.
Like somewhere in some screening room, somebody died, and they were like, "We got to lighten this up somewhere, just somewhere." But that scene stuck with me. It's just a silly little thing. It's like just a little shimmer of light in the middle of this horror story that we're watching.
See, that was one of my notes actually, and it's a little note, something that we could tackle in about 90 seconds. Is like, I could have done with a little bit more Kenneth Branagh. He was funny and he was good because even like in the very serious scenes, that scene towards the very end of the movie where they were still playing with the timeline, and you see Tom Hardy shooting down a plane out over the open ocean.
That was another good one.
But at the same time, you see a dive bomber coming flying in and is about to destroy the beach. It was like a quick moment. We just had a big cheer. Oh, the ships are coming in. We're going to get some of these men out. And he sighs, and then he turns because he hears a sound, and you start hearing that telltale crescendo of a dive bomber again.
Yeah.
And he sighs, and he closes his eyes.
The way he closes his eyes, I am heartbroken.
And then you hear an explosion because we realize the timelines are still off a little bit, and Tom Hardy comes swooping in. By the way, out of fuel in his airplane, and shoots down a plane while he is out of fuel.
So good.
And like, so we got the whole range of it, where we get a couple of funny lines from him, and we get serious, heavy acting too. And he doesn't have to say anything. It's that scene from Return of the King when the men from Rohan come rushing in and they start to win the day, and we get a smile and a sigh from King Theoden, and then he hears the sound and he turns and just goes, And he dies because he's just has zero chance, and that's where Kenneth Branagh is right there.
All right. That's a great scene. The another one of his funny lines at the very end when that soldier wakes up, and honestly, like that was him, right?
Yes.
So
we thought he died.
Yeah, that was him.
That was him.
Huh. I was gonna ask you. It didn't look like him to me.
Well, his hair was all fucked up.
Yeah.
He had slick back hair most of it, but then when he got dunked in the sea a few times and came out and got really curly and stuff, that was him.
Oh, because he got out of the boat.
Yes. The last time we see him,
right,
it was...
Right, that makes sense.
Harry Styles and the other guy who he was quote-unquote friends with the whole movie, who I think is Tommy might have been his name. I think they said his name once.
It is.
They are on a ship that sinks, and they barely make it out, and they're swimming, and they're getting caught in an oil slick, and all that sort of stuff. And you see a couple guys who are nearly drowning and make it out of the ship, and the French soldier, who we didn't know was French until...
Oh my goodness, this makes the scene so much better for me.
We think that, because it pans out, it looks like he's drowned. And at the very end, as Kenneth Branagh and the last couple of Navy officers are leaving, there's a soldier who was under a cover, and he pulls the blanket up off and he looks around. That's the French soldier.
Yeah, so when he wakes up and he looks around, I was like, oh my god, you're all alone. This is horrible.
Yes, because it looks like that. You just see a couple of helmets and one spare pack, and like not even dead bodies, let alone live ones.
And I can't remember the line, but he says something witty there.
He says, come on, Private. He goes, let's get moving. You'll have to deal with just being all of us officers or whatever.
But what's even better about that now is knowing that I didn't realize that was him.
I'm 95% sure that was him.
Well, if that's the case, the fact that he doesn't understand a word he's saying makes it even better.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, it's just like, he's literally on his own making this joke. We just saved 300,000 people.
There's a couple of guys who've already gotten onto the ship, and they're like, "Oh, good one, sir." Let's go get some tea.
I also just love his attitude of like, we just saved 300,000 people. I could do better. Close the thing. See you next week.
So now this is liar, liar. I've had better.
I've had better. Oh man, no, that's great. But there's a lot of interesting scenes with the French soldier. My favorite, obviously, is actually in the water. So to kind of get you there, he saves Tommy a handful of times. This is another one of those times. Their ship gets torpedoed. Everybody ends up in the water. The French soldier managed to get himself to a lifeboat early, and he's like the last slot on that boat that's headed towards the shore. And the Harry Styles and what was Harry Styles' name in the?
I'm not 100% sure.
Well, him and Tommy are in the water, and they're trying to get to this same lifeboat, and he's reaches his hand out to grab them because they forged this bond over the course of the movie so far of like they're both trying to get home. Let's do this, or trying to get safe. Let's stick this out together. And he's trying to help them, and the other guy like swats his hand away. He's like, "We have no room for him," and the guys on the boat are saying, "We have no room for him." And then he just subtly throws a rope to them.
Yeah,
and I was just like,
also, how kind of gut wrenching was that scene? Because we've seen, I don't even remember what the dad's name was, Mark Rylance character. Another good performance from him. I never saw Bridge of Spies, but he was nominated. He won.
He won for that, I think.
Supporting
actor.
Yep. But I've seen little bits of him. Like he looks like a
Mr. Dawson.
Was that his name, Mr. Dawson? When Mr. Dawson pulls a soldier who's sitting on top of a capsized ship, and it's I believe it's Cillian, right? Yeah. Cillian Murphy. Well, the
shivering, casted as the shivering soldier.
Oh, because he never gives him his name. No. He asks him, and he never gives it to him. And he clearly, and there's a whole bunch actually I want to talk about with that. But we'll start with he's shivering and he's clearly shocked, right? Shell shocked is what the name says. And we see a little while later that scene in the water with the lifeboat was him standing on the boat commanding that boat. When the two of them are swimming out to the lifeboat and they won't let him on, he says, "Gentlemen, you're both wearing life vests. The water's not too cold.
Yeah.
It's not too rough. You'll be fine. We'll come back for you. But there's no room on this boat for you right now."
Who says that?
That's Cillian Murphy.
It is?
Yes. Because that's on the timeline of the beach, which is a week. We've already seen him picked up by the boat, which is a 1 day timeline. You didn't realize.
Oh my god, I did not realize that.
That's why that's so
important. This movie's so good.
That's why it's so important. They bookended it.
Yeah.
See, I'm not supposed to be doing this. You've seen the movie twice. You're supposed to be telling me these things.
It didn't even look like him to me. That's
well, it's
why.
hard because that scene's in pitch black darkness with just some backlit from a burning boat.
He has a hat on, and we've seen
He
him.
may have had a hat on. I don't remember. But either way,
that's
you couldn't tell.
great.
You couldn't tell it was him at first when he's talking, but when he
blew my
stands
mind.
up, you can see it's clearly him.
Ah, so good.
So the whole point,
great.
and he says the line about it's scary when the bomber hits your ship, and he says it wasn't a ship, a bomb. It was a U-boat. It was a torpedo.
That makes a lot more sense now. Yeah.
He has these other lines from being blown up when he's on the ship.
Oh man, how good is that? I love that. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Oh man, I have to go see this a third time. Not in Dolby Atmos because then you won't hear from me again.
Well, no, you won't hear him again.
Huh? Mark Rylance. Since you mentioned him, fantastic character in this movie, and the pure understanding that he has for these soldiers, like.
Well, that was something I definitely wanted to get into, so this is as good a time as any.
Let's do it.
The treatment of the shivering soldier, acknowledging the fact that he has PTSD, or called him shell shock. That was the parlance at the time. That was a big scene.
Yeah.
Because you can understand, especially back then, how. I mean, they used to give them shock therapy, like literally try to electrocute them out of PTSD. So for him to actually say to the kids, listen, he's not a coward. He was just blown up. He watched a bunch of people he know died.
Yeah. Is he a coward, sir?
No, he's
No, George.
And he says, well, when will he be better? And he said he may never be better.
Yeah.
And that sort of treatment of it, like that empathy was really big and really important, and it was performed very well by Mark.
Oh, he is fantastic. And one of my again, we talked about how the dialogue is super important in this movie. My favorite line is when he says, Cillian Murphy says to him, like something, a man of your age, I'm going to paraphrase this whole thing. He's like, a man of your age, and he says, men of my age can dictate the war. Why should we let you fight it?
No, not can.
Right.
Men of my age dictate this war, and we send our sons. Why should we be exempt?
So good. And I was just like, just like this. I love this man. I was like, what is this? Dawson, Grandpa Dawson.
No. Papa Dawes?
Papa Dawson.
Papa Dawson?
He's coming back? Papa Dawson back? Oh my god. But yeah, he's fantastic. And there's a really another super powerful scene with dialogue. His Peter, his son, right?
Yes.
Peter is saying over and over again that that plane with Collins in it was shot down. He's dead, or like it's shot down. Like, Dad, it's shot down. It's shot down.
See a shit.
He goes. He's like, I hear you. And he's like, it doesn't mean I shouldn't try. He's like, what if he's alive? And like you see it, and this is before you find out that his son was a fighter, and died.
Yeah.
And it like you kind of get that before you. Just from like how emotional he is about this.
Well, it's tough to tell. I mean,
and then it's revealed, and it's
time,
like beautiful.
It could just be that level of patriotism.
Yeah,
you know, the fact even if he didn't have a son that died, it could be. Well, my son's nearly old enough to be fighting. It could be my son over there. I would be remiss not to save other people's sons.
Yeah, it's just beautiful, and like he's destroyed in that moment because he's just like the only thing that I can do right now is take this boat to that plane and try.
Yes,
and he does.
And they save him.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't going to make it without
Afternoon. That's a great scene. So let's get into Peter and the shivering soldier for a second here. So that scene...
that was a complicated relationship.
That was real complicated. So at first it's like, is the boy okay? No, he's not. You dick. He pushed him downstairs.
He pushed him downstairs and cracked his head.
Yeah.
What do you think happened?
Son of a bitch. Right? Like, and then by the end though, like after he's died... Is he gonna be okay? And like he's starting to get it, and he's like, yeah, he'll be all right. And like that scene is very hard to watch, but the nod that Mark Rylance, is that his name?
Yes.
That he gives him is just like so moving. It's just like you understand,
and the fact that
you get where like what we have to do,
the fact
and how we have to be.
That scene could have been shot ever so slightly differently. It could have been him saying it. Peter turning and looking to his dad nodding,
and then
him doing it. and you still would have got it, and it still would have felt right, and like it was earned.
It's way more powerful this way.
It's even better this way. But the other way, though, it would have been perfectly valid, right? Because we're talking about the kid, 16?
Yeah.
Like, because he wasn't old enough to be out fighting yet.
Yeah.
Because he's here with his dad. So he's still young.
Right.
He just watched his best friend die.
Well, it's like, what
He's
good is it
all
if
these people die and everything like that. Like, he could have been shivering and no one would have given him any grief for it, right?
But the fact that he understands, though, and it's like, he's dead. I can be pissed off about this right now, but this guy has been through some shit. Yeah. And it's like, there's no reason to harp on this.
He could have been raging. He could have beat the shit out of him. He could have beat the shit out of him right the second he threw him off the thing. When he found out that he was blind from cracking his head open.
That scene hurt, too.
The very second,
I can't see. Oh.
The very second that he died, he could have run up the stairs and beat the shit out of him, and you would have felt justified, even though it would have been shitty.
Yeah.
And the fact that he couldn't come above that, and that's another thing. Further, I just didn't fit with us talking about it a little while ago. It's better now to kind of close up that topic, right? The treatment of this person who's clearly not himself because of the horrific trauma that he's endured,
right?
And to watch this kid who's watching this horrific stuff that. If he could have been selfish there and been like, no, fuck you, you killed my best friend. And instead, he protected this guy and his incredibly fragile psyche. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I could have done it.
Yeah. I love the other scene with him that I love. It's right before that when he's like, be careful down there. And he's like, he's dead, mate. And he goes, be bloody careful with him. Like, I was like, oh, man. Ooh.
Also, man, like, that soldier's got to realize... He wasn't there on the boat for when it happened, but you kind of got to get the context there.
Yeah.
Could you have been 5% more gentle with that situation? I'm sorry, but it looks like he's no longer with us.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that's important too, though, because his character kind of comes around in that moment a little bit too, because when he sees the look on his face when he's like, then be bloody careful with him, and he's like, You see the look on his face changes, and then he very gently moves him and covers him with the blanket.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm not the only one going through some shit.
Yeah. What I'm saying, though, is like, you don't know anything. My first assumption when I'm coming on that boat is, that's probably his younger brother.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because he's not in a fucking uniform. If he was just a soldier, you could have been like, hey, man, this guy's already dead. Like us live soldiers. He's dressed in civilian gear on this thing.
I don't think he could be...
They're two teenagers.
He's not going to be better, though. He's not going to be... I don't think he would immediately... Because this guy's been in war. He doesn't realize that this kid... it's just like, oh, yeah, just another dead person. And it takes a minute for him to get back to the fact that not everybody's in this war.
Yeah.
Fighting hand-to-hand, but... everybody is affected by it, and it's like it comes full circle. Like it's a split second. The whole thing you can see it, like the whole scene, like it just like goes like right through, like and he makes that connection.
Yeah, it's
good. Yeah. It's really well done.
No, it was a good scene. I was just like it felt a little weird to me, but I mean, I you can take it into context and totally get it because, like you said, he probably has already watched 10 friends of his die in the past couple days. Like,
what do you think of the scene when the boat finally docks though, and Cillian Murphy obviously sees that there's a person wrapped, and quickly turns and walks away.
I mean, it made you want to have
it's hard.
either the father or Peter go to him.
Yeah.
Because there's no one there waiting for him.
Right.
They're landing in some city that none of those men have ever been in. I mean, they're back in England, which is a huge relief to them, but they're on the train, and Harry Styles is saying, where are we?
Yeah.
Like, none of them even knows where the hell they are.
Yeah.
So for any of these guys to be completely alone in this situation, sure, they're like, okay, well, I'm not going to get shot at. That's great. But where the fuck am I? I don't know anyone here. And it's not even like these guys are all with their own men, too. At this point, they've all been shaken up and remixed and everything. Most of these guys, there's 400,000 people on that beach. They aren't with their units.
Right.
They probably don't even know any of the guys other than the fact that they were almost drowning next to each other.
So devastating.
So for that guy in particular to be left completely alone and possibly come to the realization like, oh, not only did I fuck up and I killed that kid, and then just wander off into the crowd alone, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. It's too much.
Yeah.
On that exact right, and that scene is packed with a lot of this, like everything kind of just like what do we do now, like, and where are we, and like how do we deal with this, like all wrapped up into a quick little shot on this little pier. So we get that scene. We also get the scene where the guy in the army bumps Collins, and it's like, where were you? And
what the fuck was that about?
I don't know, but when Mark Rylance turns around, he taps me and goes, "They know where you were."
But I mean, like, it's not like he was in, like, jeans. Like, okay, he wasn't wearing infantry uniform, but he's clearly a pilot.
No, that's what he's asking. Where was the Air Force? Where was their support?
I guess so.
That's what he's asking.
The point is, he's coming on this boat with a bunch of guys who they picked up. You don't think that maybe he fucking got shot down too?
He's angry. I don't think anybody's thinking clearly.
He was out for a Sunday. He was out for a Sunday cruise, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, every single person who's standing on this pier right now was on a sinking ship at some point. Mm-hmm. Do you think that guy was just along for the ride?
Right.
He was probably doing some stuff. Like, come on.
But it's more his frustration towards why was the Air Force not there to support them. That's what it is.
I guess so. It just, I don't know. It just seems like everyone is clearly in the same boat at that point.
Boo.
Unintentional.
Unacceptable.
It can be both. So it just seems like an odd note to me. I don't know. That just seemed a little heavy-handed.
I love the scene.
Well, the scene overall, yes. Just that line in particular. I mean, it's a kudos to Mr. Dawson. It's just, it was just an odd line for me.
That also, like, when he's Harry Styles' character, he's like so ashamed when they're on the train. I'm curious if that happens without the scene of George being dead on the boat. Because he's gotten that. That's where he got grounded back into, like, what life is like outside of this war and how it is affecting so many people. And he's very, very much ashamed of himself.
I don't know. It's because you could see a lot of those guys, not just the ones from the ship, were feeling that idea of, like, the shame. In fact, if you watch the way that scene goes out, you'd think that the primary feeling is relief. Like, we're back on solid ground, we're not getting shot at. But the main feeling seems to be shame.
Yeah.
We lost. We let people down. We disappointed them. They're going to be spitting on us in the streets. And it's like, okay, I understand feeling like shit because you got your asses handed to you and everything like that, but you really think, like that's how shit... Like, this isn't even in Vietnam. This is well before that, you know, like, that sort of phenomenon. Like, you think that these people aren't going to be happy that...
You're alive.
You're alive. Like, that seems odd.
It's sad.
Maybe some disappointment, but do you think it's going to be hatred? Vitriol? I mean, that doesn't seem... These aren't people who turned tail and ran. Right. These are people who were about to be butchered. They had no defense. They were as vulnerable as the civilians themselves at that point.
It's crazy, like,
more even, because they're the ones actually being shot at.
Yeah. It's just like this credit, though, to Christopher Nolan. It's like you feel you totally get every feeling that every character has, like, and it's completely validated by the things that they're going through and the way they deliver it. And it's a really well done movie because of that. It's so good.
There was an interesting choice in the making of this movie, the structure of it, that I wanted to know your thoughts on. We never see any German soldiers until the very final scene of the movie. That was interesting. The closest we come to that is seeing the fighters and the bombers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shooting that happens. There's a lot of death that happens. And during the course of that whole thing, we literally don't see any German soldiers. Really unique way to look at that.
Yep.
Because
it makes them so terrifying.
It makes them so terrifying, but it even goes one step further. This isn't a conflict of British and French versus Germans. This is a conflict of British and French soldiers against time and death itself. Which is interesting, because usually most movies, or any media, whatever, when there's any sort of central conflict between opposing sides, seeks to humanize the other sides, so you understand they're not just faceless monsters, they're people with their own reasons for doing this, right? Whereas this went completely opposite, and it didn't make them faceless monsters. It made the monsters and the things that you fought not people at all. You're not concerned with the fact that it is a person because you don't see a single one of the people. It's death and time and inevitability itself. Yeah. Which was a really unique take in my mind.
I totally get that. Oh man, yeah, it's interesting to reflect on that, because if you go right back to that beginning scene, the opening scene of the movie when they're getting shot at, and you don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, there's 6 or 8 people, whatever, however many guys that were running down the street,
dead, and
every one of them gets shot and killed, but you never see who takes the shot on any one of them.
Yeah,
there's the scene when they're sitting on the trawler and it's getting lit up and the water is rushing into the ship, and you don't see a single person take their shots. At first, it just seems like maybe it's one person. Then it seems like the entire German army is shooting at them.
Right.
But either way, it's just them, the boat, the water that's trying to drown them, and the boats that are trying to kill them. Mm-hmm. Bullets that are coming from some source that we can't see.
And then at the end, when you do see them, they're in a very blurred.
Yes, the foreground is very much focused on Tom Hardy, who we barely talked about, but we're going to have to talk about, I'm sure. But maybe not just yet.
Love that man.
But we just see basically the outlines of 2 men holding him up. Yeah,
was it 2, or maybe even a couple more? It might have been 3 or so, but like
it was 2. There was one on either side of them. I'm sure there was more, but there was 2.
They also had masks on too, though, right? Didn't they have gas masks?
I don't know if they did.
Because you don't see faces.
You didn't see the faces. I don't know if they had masks on or not, because a couple things. One, it was focused on him and they were blurry, and 2, there was. He burnt his plane so that they couldn't capture it and study the stuff and turn the stuff.
Find out the weaknesses and all that. Mm-hmm.
So his face is lit up by the flames burning, but the way it was shot with the 2 of them standing behind him, there's serious shadow cast across their figures. The way that Lance Armstrong was not covered in Tour de Pharmacy, right. So you can't see their faces regardless because of the way the shadows fall. So I don't even know if you could see whether there was a mask or not. I don't remember, but it wasn't important. All that was important was that, again, they're not people, but not because they are dehumanized, but because they don't matter.
Right. That's so good. I wonder, though, what I didn't fully understand was why he landed the plane where he landed it.
See, I was wondering about that, too, and I think this is the final nail in the whole idea of the timelines. I think he would have rather landed it earlier if he could, but he was going to stay up there as long as he could to make sure as many people could get away and there was no more planes coming in to take pot shots. And at that point, remember what the colonel, I don't remember what his name was, James Darcy, from Cloud Atlas and stuff, the tall one, the army colonel, when the trawler was getting shot up, he said, wait, they've come around on the east side now. It's going to happen any time now. The Germans had basically taken the beach.
Right.
So there was no one to defend him. There was no safe landing zone for him. The Germans fully had it. The retreat was fully done.
I guess I don't know how much time. Like, so we see that, he swoops by, he blows that plane out of the air from destroying everybody and ruining this whole celebration of everybody getting off the beach. And I guess we don't know if he's made a couple more passes after that, which he may have.
He did. And also it took him time to get his landing gear up. That was a really weird hydraulic system where he had to pump it manually. Unlike planes today where you hit the button and they just flop out, he had to physically pop them out of the thing.
But I was thinking more along the lines of, like, why didn't he just, like, I don't know, crash land in the water or something, or jump out, or bail out.
Because he did have wheels, although in my mind I was like, holy shit, you're going to do this on sand? That seems like the worst surface you could possibly land on. But Collins took a huge risk landing on the water.
Yeah, for sure.
That plane's not meant to land that way.
For sure.
And I think he was afraid of that.
I guess that's true.
I guess he didn't have a parachute because he could have pulled that chute earlier.
I also wonder if he's saving them a little bit more time by being the focus of attention where he lands.
It may have been that as well. That he's a final distraction, so he's a valued piece. And
we had spoken about this. This is the guy that rallies. He's at the end of the night. He's like, one more drink, guys.
Yes.
Like he just keeps doing one more thing.
And
I've got no gas left. I'll stay out another 20 minutes. Like, Jesus Christ, guy.
He accepted his fate too. He could have tried to run. He could have even tried to end it for himself.
He's like a little smirk on his face at the end,
rather than be captured. But instead, he stands there and takes it.
He's like, "I did my best."
That guy.
Cheers.
The stones on that guy.
Cheers. Yeah.
What I wrote down here and what I said to you when we were walking out of the theater is that guy had fucking ice water in his veins. Nothing got to him. He was a stone cold killer. He was a fucking badass, as badass as anyone could be, without ever leaving the cockpit until the very last scene.
Right.
he fucking was a hero.
Yeah.
And unrepentant to the end.
He's so crucial to the entire movie.
Yes.
Which is great. Oh, man. I love that scene where he's like, Collins is like, he's on me. And he just like, a second later, I'm on him. And like that way, when he has him do the bank and he like lines up the shot on his buddy so that when he banks, the other guy's going to cross the same line.
It was well done.
And he takes him out. I was like, ooh, is that good?
It was smart because it was the one thing, as good of a pilot and as ballsy as he was and as many risks as he took, wasn't a great gunner.
No.
He had him
I was
lined
like,
up.
lead, bro. Lead.
He had him lined up like where he could have let him and just didn't do it. He had to force the lead. There was a time with the bomber where could not have been more dead to rights and took 10 minutes to take him down. Like,
Who's lining up that shot for the engines, though?
I guess so.
That's what that scene is.
I guess, but I would have just been at that point.
Just like you would just been like raining
well,
fire.
Well, two things. One, the bomber by its own nature is not nearly as maneuverable as his, so it was never going to shake him.
Right.
He was so close to it, and he had it completely lined up.
Mm-hmm.
Spray and pray to start would have been fine, because if he hits one of the engines, then he could take his time to get the other. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Also, if he's spraying it, he could have taken out that tail gunner, which would have made it a lot easier on him. He wouldn't have had to keep going like this, because that tail gunner almost got him a couple times. If he had just sprayed and hit the dome and killed the guy in the gunner like battery, like he would have had all the time in the world to shoot him.
Yeah. He's a gambling man.
Yeah.
He's a risky guy, and it all comes like that's very clear in that line where he's like, when he asks his buddy how much fuel he has left, and he's like, "We should go back," and he goes, fairly certain it's just the gauge."
No. It was. You sure you're all right? Yeah, I'm fairly certain. It's just the gauge, which it was. He clearly mashed it with his knee, doing his maneuvers or whatever. And you would watch.
Oh, I thought it took a round. It looked like it went.
Well,
he had gotten lit up on the side.
Got in, but I feel like that was too precise. I imagined it was him like bashing it with his knee or something like that. Maybe it was.
That's fair. That's possible.
Either way, and it's a funny line, backed by the fact that if you watch them measure their fuel like a couple minutes earlier. There's no way he was out of fuel unless he took a round. That was really the only thing, because this was early in the conflict for them. But if he had taken a round, he probably would have been smoking.
Right.
Because we had seen that with all the other planes that got shot down.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. I love that he's like, he's taking away, writing down how many gallons he has and measuring out where he can go.
Yeah, it's badass. Really... While he's flying his plane and shooting people down, he's taking down notes.
Yeah.
And doing math.
Gallons.
like calculus.
That's great. Oh, man.
Although, I will say that this... unfortunately, is another role that subscribes to the thing that you've been afraid of, where it's just yet another role of him mumbling.
Yeah,
it's a shame. He's capable of so much more.
I really like him. He's great. I think he's fantastic.
He did a good job. It's just like he is becoming weirdly typecast in that very specific, very odd. Like, why is that a theme?
But he does a weird thing. He's able to carry more presence than somebody that is speaking on screen.
Like he's gonna
never
have to talk,
speaking.
He's gonna have to talk when he's Venom, right? Well, maybe not Venom, but Eddie Brock.
Yeah, probably. I would imagine. I mean, and he has roles where he had.
But it's been a while.
It has been a while. Yeah, but like, I don't know, like the fact that he's able to pull that off though, and like I said, like and pull so much attention without having any dialogue. I mean, like in Mad Max, he says like 2 words the whole movie. Like, you know what I mean?
Saying,
but it works. He's good.
Sure, it's just he's capable of more, so I want to see more.
That's true. Like, I think we will. I'm sure.
Like I saw, like the movie Lock. The movie Lock, he is driving for 90 minutes and is talking the whole time.
Yeah, I want to see that.
It's okay.
Still want to see it.
You should watch it once, and
Fair.
not again.
Fair.
But you should watch it once.
I like him.
No, I like him too. But that's why I'm saying like I'm like chafing it like that. Like,
must dream bigger.
Yeah. So like that's a funny line and well delivered. You know what I mean? Like. He's capable of more. Mm-hmm. That is a good Loki line. I caught a little bit of Inception recently, but I haven't seen. It hasn't been. It used to be on TV a lot, and it hasn't been on much. I got to sit down and just like watch it because I haven't seen it in a while, and I love that movie.
That'd be a good movie to do an episode on.
We would definitely have a lot to talk about with that.
Do like a taping of that while we're watching it.
Okay, I can see that. That'd
be fun.
Sorry, there was just something I was just thinking of, and sorry, I forgot to put it down as a note, but it was something that I did want to kind of just have a quick little chat about. So we got Tom Hardy, we got Cillian Murphy, and we have Hans Zimmer, obviously. The old Nolan standbys.
Yeah.
Who are we missing?
Michael Caine.
Or were we?
What? Do I have to do something right now? Do I have to look through this cat?
I don't know if he's credited, but Michael Caine is in that movie.
Stop.
I'm not going to stop because it's true.
When?
Oh, he's there. Do you want to keep looking or want me to tell you?
I want to... Can you give me a hint? Don't tell me right away. Just give me a hint. Something that could make me think of like a scene or...
The only hint I can...
Son of a bitch.
What, does he see him on there?
Yeah. He was radio communication.
Yep.
God damn! That's uncredited. That is awesome.
The beginning of the movie when Tom Hardy is talking on the radio to...
That's him. That is beautiful. Voice. I love that.
So
he loves his squad. I actually have written down here. I have Christopher Nolan. I have color palette, which we didn't really talk about, but it's the same color palette for his like darker movies. Sequencing, which we talked about. IMAX, which we talked about. / I have squad. Christopher Nolan's squad. It's listed on my notes. That's really funny. I definitely did not pick up on that.
I did, and I saw something while we were in the car. I was reading a little bit about it, and there was an interview with Nolan, and he dropped it in case anyone missed it. He said, people asked about Michael Caine. He wasn't in the movie. We know like Cillian and Tom Hardy were, but Michael Caine did a few lines for us as the radio operator for the RAF.
That's great
because it's a Nolan movie, so Michael Caine has to be in it.
Christopher Nolan loves Michael Caine.
He does.
It's really fun.
How do you not love Michael Caine?
This is true. Never. Phony Branca.
Some men just want to see the world burn.
He's great. There was one scene that's there's a lot of scenes in the movie that are just like they take their time with them. They're just like a slow let you get a lay of the land when there's no crazy action happening, and it's all terrifying. And one particular scene is when the guy is helmet off, belt off, jacket off, and he just walks into the water to die. And it's just like...
Yeah, I kind of questioned that too. I was like, oof. There was a whole bunch of guns in that beach, man. That's a way better way to go.
Yeah. Maybe, but it's like something... I don't know, it's like... Is it maybe in his mind? It's like it's not so much of a suit. Like maybe he's just gonna try to swim home. He's obviously not going to, but maybe that's what he's doing. Maybe he's just swimming home. Like
I guess I don't know.
I also love that scene where they're carrying the stretcher and they go over the board and they're all cheering for them when they get over that one plank of wood.
That was kind of a cool scene. Yeah. Make a run at it. Yeah. And they all cheer.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh my god, the movie's so good. I gotta see it again.
This is another one where I need some space. Like I don't know how you saw it twice in a week. Like that would be
I was really excited to see it in IMAX. That's what it was.
Well, true. So that certainly was. But for me, like
I will. The next time I see this movie, it'll be when I own it.
Yeah.
I say I want to see it again, but I will wait until I own it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like I need a few months. Maybe it'll pop up on HBO or something, and like that. Like at that point, maybe I'll probably want to watch it at some point. But
that torpedo scene. We didn't really talk about that that much. We talked about like the aftermath of that torpedo scene. When you hear the shouting off the side of the boat and you don't know what's happening, and then finally the word comes clear that it's torpedo, and you just see as it's coming towards the boat.
Not just that. Let's backtrack like 5 minutes. Like they did the horn on the thing because they were shipping off, and it was like a celebratory thing.
Yeah,
there was guys literally cheering on the side of the boat. And then you see the torpedo moving through the water and hear the shouts from out on the water. Yeah. That was fucked up.
I do think it was interesting, though, that the two characters... I'm going to keep calling them Tommy and Harry, because I don't know what Harry's name was in the movie.
I forget.
But it's like, let's like look for a quick way out in case we go down. And they move over to the door.
No, that he was explaining that's what the French...
That's what I thought the first time I watched it. That's not what he's saying.
He says, what's wrong with your friend? He said he's looking for a quick way out.
No, he asks that question, he looks around the room, he gives him a shrug, and he says, "Let's look for a quick way out in case the boat goes down." They
You
move.
sure about that?
Yeah, I'm certain, because then they move towards the door and they look up at it and they stay there, and that's how they end up getting out.
Well, because it took them a while to get out, though. So
It did, but it took the door a while to open. It must have been pitch black in there.
close enough. Yeah.
You know, so it took when the door opened, they see the light,
Yeah.
and they're close enough. That's why they make it out. Many other people did not.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? That scene with the oil is also terrifying.
Yeah.
When the oil goes up, I was like, "Whew." Oh! One other scene that I forgot about when Papa Doss is on the boat and he guides them so that when the fighters come to shoot them down, and he like tells them exactly when to pull and like avoid getting shot. It's like, that's when you find out that his son was.
Yeah.
He's like, how'd you know he was going to do that? He goes, my son was one of you a lot. I knew he'd come around to see us off or something like that. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
That's great. Oh man, this movie was just fantastic. Christopher Nolan does it again. just as per usual. You have any other notes?
No, I got up all the ones that I had on here. So
You good?
yeah,
I'm good. Can't wait to see what his next movie is going to be.
His next movie?
Yeah.
It's gonna be a couple years.
I don't care. That's fine.
Because
wait.
usually he kind of announces it around the time it's coming out, right? What he's gonna embark on next, or like soon after.
Yeah, this one was.
So I remember him kind of announcing this like around the time that Interstellar came out.
Right, and then it just like I guess I had completely like lost track of it because it takes a while, and I appreciate the time that he takes his time to make these movies.
Oh sure.
Anyway, that's it for this week's Flix in the Six. Check out Spinchoon.com each week for a new episode and a random article. You don't ask for them.
We're gonna give them to you.
Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, cheers.